Hey guys, how you doing? Uncle Stef here. So today I want to talk about the 3 different ways you can monetize, you can make money with coding. You can get a job, you can freelance, or you can start a SaaS-based business. A SaaS business, of course, is a software as a service. I've been involved with all these things. I've been coding since the early 90s, so I'm going to share my decades of experience with you. I posted something on X recently, and there's some comments in here, but we can use to kick this off. So I wrote on Twitter, developer job versus freelance versus SaaS business founder. Would you guys be interested in discussions on all 3? Compare and contrast. Let me know. So I got a few comments here on the X platform, I guess it is. So somebody says, Joseph said, the last 2 are best, too many layoffs, too little hiring, but contracts and businesses are still okay. So he's saying that developer jobs, not necessarily the best solution today. I'm recording this December 2024. So going into 2025, I'm going to deal with that in a second. There's plenty of jobs, by the way. If you're worried, there's plenty of developer jobs. It's just a question of where you want to go and how you want to position yourself. So Marianne says all the above. Marcel says, yes, I would be interested. Samuel says, a discussion sounds worthwhile. Each path has its perks and challenges. Exactly. I'd love to hear thoughts on comparisons. All 3. So he says, let's spill the tea. This is Martin says, let's spill the tea on these tech careers. I'm ready to dive in. All right. So we won't spill anything, and it won't be tea, it'll be coffee. So we're going to start with coffee here. So let's look at the big picture. You have 3 career paths: job, freelance, and SaaS builder. Let me dispel a couple of myths. Myth number 1, do you need to have job experience to become a freelancer? No. In the freelance space, your credentials are irrelevant. Whether you have a degree or not, whether you have certifications or not, are absolutely irrelevant as a freelancer and a SaaS builder. With those 2 career tracks, if you will, as a developer, SaaS developer or freelance developer, it's all about what you can prove, what you can demonstrate in terms of your skill set. So having a big resume with lots of work experience definitely would help for sure, but it's not required. What they're going to look at is what you can demonstrate. So what's that mean? Well, in the development space, web development space, where most of the freelance work will be done, it's having a really great website. I've talked about this many times, and showing previous work that you've done for clients. So as a freelancer, the school projects or the projects you did on your own, the fun projects, won't cut it. So why won't the Udemy projects or the YouTube projects or your home projects, why won't they cut it to get your freelance business going? Because a big part about being a professional developer is being able to work with other people, to extract requirements from a client, to deliver on those requirements, and to just get something up and running. It's a very different game than if you just copy and code from some project that you've done online. 5 years ago or so, when even during the pandemic, when people were just rushing to hire anybody, yes, you could get away with that kind of stuff and get a job. But these days, you have to show a little bit more than that. So for freelance, again, to emphasize, you don't need a degree, you don't need credentials, you just need to be able to demonstrate that you can actually perform the work on real projects, and you show this by having real projects to show. So this is the catch-22. You say to me, Stef, but Uncle Stef, how am I supposed to get my first contracts if I need contracts to show that I can get contracts? Here's the hack. Here's the hack that I have people do in my mentoring program. Once you have your foundational skills up, then you put out your portfolio website, even if it's empty, but make sure it looks really pro. And then you do 2 to 3 small, free projects for real businesses. It could be a local coffee shop, a local auto shop, a lawyer, a dentist, whatever it is, and do it for free. Get something done for them so you can start building a portfolio, number 1. And number 2, to build those skills, those professional skills of actually building real projects. Writing code is, of course, foundational to development, but it's not everything. It's actually a small part of the process many times. So the other skills related to being able to run a project, you need good communication skills, you need some some light architectural skills. Of course, the projects you're going to take on as a freelancer are going to be for small business. So you're not designing the next system for PayPal or something, but you're going to be, you still need to have these basic skills in terms of architecture, in terms of project management. Managing small projects, by the way, is very different than managing a very large project. Small project management is much more light, nimble, very quick, whereas when you're working with very large organizations, then there's much more bureaucracy and paperwork, different skill set. So what about getting a job? Just a normal tech job. Is there anything wrong with that? There's absolutely nothing wrong with getting a job. I know people who have worked their entire careers as developers and they've done very, very well, retired, multimillionaires because they just saved and invest properly. There's advantages to getting a job over freelance, and there's advantages in being a freelancer over getting a job. Before I get into the psychology of the different type of person, let me just give you some of the bullet points in terms of pros and cons between freelancing job and SaaS developer. So with the job, the big advantage is that you are provided a structure. Everything is there for you. You're hired as a React developer, boom. This is how we write code. This is what you're going to do. Here are our project. Here are your assignments. And every 2 weeks, you get your paycheck. Everything's cool. You just have to worry about your aspect of the job. You don't have to worry about the whole project itself, typically, unless you're a senior. You don't have to worry about what Jimmy is doing here and Nancy is doing there. You just got to do your thing. As long as you do your thing, you're cool. But you have to do what they want. They tell you the coding standards. They tell you what technologies you're going to work with. They tell you when you have to deliver on certain things. You're put in a smaller box, but it's not necessarily a prison. It could be a cradle to protect you, right? It depends on your personality type. So if you like to be given structure and you thrive in that environment where you can thrive within parameters that are set for you and you can get the work done, and then you don't want to have to worry about anything when you leave work. It's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever, I'm done, I'm out. And you don't have to worry about anything. That's the advantage of having a job. And then, of course, depending on where you are in the world, you can get health care and you can get certain social benefits and unemployment. This is all the advantages of having a job. Quite a bit, quite a bit. Predictability is another advantage. Now, it doesn't mean you won't get fired. People do get fired a lot, especially now in late 2024. I'm recording this December. And going into 2025, you're going to see some churning there. You're going to see some fat being shed from businesses and processes. But that's okay. After the fat shedding cycle is complete, then they're going to start hiring again. And if you train up and you position yourself well in terms of contacts and so on, then you're going to do fantastic. I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Let me touch off on freelancing and building a SaaS. Freelancing and building a SaaS require the same type of individual to a certain extent. When you're freelancing or building a SaaS business, you're building a business in both cases. The harder one to build, of course, most of the time is the SaaS business. So SaaS is a software as a service. I've done a few. So my first SaaS, strangely enough, was a dating site, Java-based dating site. I started building it just for fun. I was building it to explore the Java technology. And next thing you know, you got 17,000 members paying. You got all these swingers in there, and you're making money. So that was what you characterize as a B2C, business to client SaaS business. I'm the business, I'm the SaaS, I'm the dating site, and I'm selling to end user clients, all the swingers. So, and people want to go on dates. So that was the B2C SaaS business. My current SaaS is something called Studioweb, which is both B2B and B2C. B2B is business to business sales, B2C business to clients. So Studioweb, you can buy individual Studioweb courses from me, interactive courses, training courses, grading, certifications, all this stuff. But the bigger part of the application of the business, of course, is the school business. So we have tons and tons of districts. Anyway, we've had lots and lots of schools, and schools are still use it to this day to teach students how to code. But also, it's got a bunch of classroom management tools in there and school management tools to a limited extent. So that's the B2B aspect of that business. Now, the thing about a SaaS business versus a freelance business is that the SaaS business takes much longer typically to get up and running and to get profitable, much longer. So you're saying to me, so why would you want to start a SaaS business if the freelance business is much easier to start up? Well, because the SaaS business has the greatest potential for money making. It's not even close. You know, Facebook is a SaaS business, Instagram is a SaaS business, Google is a SaaS business. You get the idea. So, whereas freelancing, you're far more limited. But on the flip side, freelancing can make you a lot of money. You could make double as much as a freelancer as you would as an employee. You could, if once you structure yourself properly and you set that up. But SaaS business is practically unlimited. But the SaaS startup time and period is far, far longer, typically, and far more costly. It may take you many years before your SaaS business starts making you money. Whereas with freelancing, you can get going, you can probably get established within a year is very doable. Some people do it much more quickly. Some people take a little longer. Depends on your sales skills. Depends on how many contacts you have out there. Depends. If you want to be a business owner in the software space, any space really, I've been doing business for decades, you need a lot of self-discipline. A lot of self-discipline, because you got to motivate yourself to get to work. You got to motivate yourself to get up and start doing this, that, and the other thing. Whereas when you work for somebody, that structure is given to you. Another personality trait that you have to be not risk averse, meaning you have to be comfortable with knowing that you may not make money that month or that client may not pay you. This becomes 10 times more important to have this risk tolerance, as they say, when you are in the SaaS business, because you may not make money for many years, if ever. The high risk situation. Fortune favors the bold, right? With great risk comes great reward. The more risk you take on, the more chance you get a big reward. That's why with the job, where you have no risk really, the reward typically is far less. Now, there's always exceptions to every rule, right? You can be one of the superstar coders at a FANG, at Google or Apple, where you're making $500,000 a year. Possible. But those are very rare exceptions. What you should do when you're making any judgments about what you're going to do in life, whether it be in business, in investments, in dating, nutrition and health, always look at the averages and play off of that. So for example, I used to always say, I say, you know, the averages are the averages because it's the average thing that happens, right? It's the most probable thing. You want to play to the averages and you just assume that, you know, go to, I don't know, Indeed.com or any job site, look at average Java developer earnings, you know, in the US. If you're in the US or if you're in India or if you're in Europe or if you're in Canada, whatever it is. And you just check that up and you get an idea where you're going to be at in 3 to 4 years. Remember, when you're starting a job, you're starting any new profession, your pay is here. And within the first 3 years, you see this big, steep rise in your salary, depending on your skill sets. So you got to take that into consideration. Anyway, with a SaaS business, it could take years before it makes you money. Like with Studioweb, it took me years to get that thing profitable. A lot of money, I had to spend a lot of money. There was a huge opportunity cost, meaning as I was working on Studioweb, I wasn't able to do my other business, which costs a lot of money. And then I had to put money out of pocket to pay for developers and pay for all this kind of crap. Hosting got super expensive at one point. So you have to consider that. So when you are getting into any business, you have to have a lot of risk tolerance. You have to have patience. You got to have cash in the bank so you're not starving. It's a riskier proposition in the beginning, but as you mature, as your skills mature, as your cash hoard increases, as the business starts to stabilize more and more and more, whether it's freelance or SaaS, that risk drops. One of the oldest rules in life, there's an old fairy tale, or whatever, expression or saying, I don't know how you characterize it. They say, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. You got baskets, you got a basket of eggs, chicken eggs. And if you have them all in one basket, if you break all your eggs, you're screwed. So this is, in the investing world, they call this diversification. You don't put all your investments in Bitcoin, or you don't put all your investment in Apple. You don't put, you spread it out, because it's almost impossible on a consistent, well, it's impossible on a consistent basis to guess or to know, to project where the best increases will be. So you spread out your risk and you're safe that way. So when you work for somebody, as we see now, you're taking some risk off the table in that you have a job, you're getting paychecks, but you have one big liability is that you have one paycheck coming in from one source of revenue, and that's your boss. And depending on the market, you may be safe for years, or it may come down where all these, Meta, Twitter, Google, they cut some fat. But again, in that environment, as long as you're top-notch, you keep top-notch, you be very useful to everybody, you'll be fine. On the other hand, with freelance, once you establish yourself, let me emphasize that, once you establish yourself with your freelance business, then, and one thing I teach, you have at least 10 clients. You want to have 10 clients, preferably more, in rotation. So if you lose one client that accounts for 5% of your revenue, it's not a big deal. Right? The worst thing you do, by the way, in business is to have just a handful of clients. You have only a small handful of clients, you're in a very risky situation. Because if you lose one of these key clients, you're dead, right? You're dead. So you always want to have many small clients as a freelancer and a SaaS owner as well, rather than being dependent one or two or three big ones. Like that's very, very dangerous thing to do. In terms of the financial realities of this whole thing between the job, the freelance business, or the SaaS business, again, the startup phase to get making money in the job is much faster and easier typically. Freelance takes more time. You can establish yourself in about a year. That's usual year and a half, where you're making really good money. And then with the SaaS business, that could take many years before it gets off the ground. So it's a different game. You understand the different disciplines and the psychology differences between the person at the job, person at the freelance, person in the SaaS. There's a subtle difference, by the way, with the freelancer versus the person who owns the SaaS. There's a subtle difference in personality type. The subtle difference is typically in the SaaS business structure, you're going to need multiple people working with you or around you. So you're going to need managerial skills vis-a-vis people. That's a skill, and that's a psychological disposition. Whereas when you freelance, you can be a super successful freelancer and not have anybody working with you. Although if you are successful, you might farm out and partner with other freelancers, independent contractors, or you can bring in staff as well. Both are possible. But at least as a freelancer, you have that flexibility where you don't necessarily have to have people working for you full time, and you won't need people working for you full time. When you have a SaaS business, again, there's always exceptions, but generally speaking, that implies staff, more partners, perhaps investors you have to manage. This is a different game. It's a different lifestyle altogether. As a freelancer, you can decide when to work, when not to work. It's pretty cool. So there you go. There's pros and cons to everything. I've seen people super successful in all three types of jobs, if you will. Job, freelancer, SaaS owner. It all works. It all works. It comes down to your personality type. It comes down to how you want to live your life. What I would suggest is that you think about who you are psychologically, number one. Number two, think about how you want to live your life. Do you want to have staff around you? You want to deal with people every day? You want to have those interactions? It could be very cool, by the way. I've done all three, except the job thing. I had a contract where I was kind of like a short-term employee. There's a difference between contractor and freelancer. A freelancer basically manages the project. You have a lot more control over how you do things, when you do things. When you're a contractor, you're a temp employee. So I guess in the mid-90s, I did a contractor job for a publicly traded company. They brought me in for 2 weeks. That was the only job I really had as a developer. I'm coming to think about it. Yeah. And it was actually pretty relaxing. I remember they brought me in because it was a high stress situation. They had very tight deadlines. They needed to get this project up and running for the government, for the Canadian government on time. So they brought me in, and apparently it was a super high stress situation. Well, it was for them. For me, it was like, oh, this is easy. This is easy money. You know, I think I was making, this is 1995 or something, maybe 96. I was making $800 a day. That's equivalent. What it's equivalent to what it is, 1,400 a day, 1,500 a day back. You know, as a young guy, I was like, wow, this is easy. And all I had to do was my part of the project. I didn't have to worry about anything else. I knew I was going to get paid because it was a big publicly traded company. So it was fantastic. It was an easy 2 weeks, easiest 2 weeks of my life. Whereas the people around me who were full-time employees, for them it was high stress. But for me, it was like nothing compared to the uncertainty of a freelance business at the time. Of course, in those days, I was still learning the game. I was understanding how things work. And later on, as I got much more established in my freelance game, I had a lot of clients, I had lots of savings, I can do what I want, when I wanted. It was great. See, that's when I started my first SaaS business, is because I had lots of free time because of the success of the freelance business, because I had saved and managed my money properly. So I was able to devote time on my own to developing different projects. I would just say, I'm going to build this, I'm going to build that, I'm going to build this. That was kind of cool. So what should you do? Depends on your personality type. Are you self-disciplined? Do you have the ability to work on your own? Do you want that freedom? You know, that freedom from having a freelance and less so SaaS business comes at a cost initially. Ultimately, if you want the most freedom, 100% is freelancing. If you want the most money earning potential, 100% it's SaaS business. Less freedom though with the SaaS because you're working with other people, you're going to be responsible to those other people, and you can't just take off for 2 weeks, typically, you know. Whereas in the freelance game, yeah, you do a bunch of contracts, you make a bunch of money, you go, you know, I'm going to take January off, no problem. I've done it many times. So it's depends what you want. Job stability for the most part until you get fired, and everything is set up for you. Again, I don't know if I answered this at the beginning of the video because it's a long video for me. You do not need a career. I did. You don't need a career. You don't need credentials to start a SaaS business or start a freelance business. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in with the work you can output. I'm Uncle Stef. I mentor people in the ways of software development, business, building freelance careers, building SaaS businesses. I've mentored people who have founded billion-dollar businesses. So, and I've been doing this for decades, since '94 when I first wrote my first professional code. So you can check me out at UncleStef.com. If you have any questions or comments about this particular video, let me know in the comments below. If you have general questions, go ahead, ask me below. And that's about it. Enjoy life, man. Take care of your health. Take care of your health. I keep emphasizing this more. As you get older, when you're getting old like me, I'm 169 years old, 2 things I've learned. Take care of your physical health. Take care of your psychological health. Eat well, eat natural foods. This will help you with your cognitive capabilities. You'll make your life more balanced. And especially as you get older, you'll find that your body is far more sensitive to how you treat it. So eat well, sleep well, drink lots of water, fast every now and then. It's good advice. In terms of your financial health, again, live below your means. One of the reasons I was able to retire quite early, semi-retired about 30 years old, and I took 10 years off until I got really bored of going for coffee and having brunch all the time. Very important that you learn to manage your finances. It's a skill. Basically, live below your means, no credit card debt, invest your excess cash into the market on a regular basis, broad index funds, dollar cost average. That's it. In this channel, by the way, I don't just mentor people in coding. I figure I'm going to give you the information I wish I had when I was your age so that you can get ahead. I learned this stuff the hard way. I had mentors help me out. One of the things I wish I would have done when I was younger, I wish I would have listened to my mentors a little bit more closely. All right, cheers. you.